It's the beach meets the streets with Rocco Pendola. It'll be sunny here one day, I promise. Done 4 of these from Santa Monica Beach, and it's been socked in with low clouds and fog, which actually is my kind of weather, but I know some people back east where it's been snowing recently would like to actually see sunshine on the West Coast. We have Rob Emrich with us today from a startup down here in Silicon Beach called PaeDae. Now, it's not PaeDaY, it's not payday loans.
Right.
It's much sexier than that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's, how do you spell it?
P as in Paul, A as in Apple, E as in Einstein, D as in David, A as in Apple, E as in Einstein.
What's the origin of PaeDae?
It was a good domain that was available before we had a business plan.
Really? That's simple, right? Well, you know, but you don't have the Twitter PaeDae. You have PaeDae Wins.
That's right. I think there's like a 14-year-old girl, seriously, there's a 14-year-old girl somewhere, I think in Sweden. That's her nickname, and she has that Twitter account. So PaeDae, if you're listening in Sweden, we want that. You're not responding to our emails. We're willing to give you something for it, but please help us. There's also a rapper in Ghana named PaeDae.
Really?
And a lot of his fans will reach out to us on Facebook.
Get out of here, right? They think,
No.
they think that it's you.
Yeah.
When's your next gig in LA? When's your next gig in Hollywood?
Yeah.
So where did the name come from, in all seriousness?
No, really. I mean, it was like, but we didn't have a very clear business plan. We wanted to have something that people were used to saying. It was a $10 domain, and at my previous companies, I've been used to paying a lot of money for domains, and we thought this is a good temporary name, and then it stuck.
Right. It's a great name. It is catchy, but more importantly, what you guys do is interesting. You're in the social gaming space, but not like everybody else. You're not creating games. I was at South by Southwest, and I'll tell you, I think every startup that was there was either doing social gaming or they were doing social video.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have a bit of a twist on what you can bring to companies that are in the social gaming space.
Right. So, I mean, when we say social games, we're talking about, from our perspective, we talk about games that are social games, also mobile games. I would say that we're around half and half right now, half on browser, half on mobile. But yeah, I mean, we actually started out by building our own game at first to understand the mechanics of how rewards work in games. But we quickly realized that it's just not what our core competency is. And also, there are a lot of other game companies who do that incredibly well, who are looking for ways to engage their users more, to engage their players more, if it's a game or if it's an app, their users. And so we decided to start working with them exclusively. We do not publish our own games. We became a total white label platform. So yeah.
What do you do for them?
So we add a rewards layer for games and apps, and we're totally white label, and we use a very sophisticated targeting mechanism that we have been working on for the past few years to identify the people who at the user level who are playing a game or an app and target a reward that we think based on offline user data that they might be interested in. So essentially, you can think of us as the provider behind thousands of games and apps in the App Store, on Facebook. When you get a reward in a game, that's probably coming from us.
Gotcha. So if I'm playing Pac-Man and I get 50,000 points and I get a free pizza from Domino's or something like that, I'm never going to know that PaeDae was responsible for this. That's what you mean by white label.
Exactly right. So we're in the background. We feel as though it's not necessary for us to have a consumer-facing brand in order for consumers to feel like they're getting rewarded. They have a relationship with the game or the app itself, and they feel a lot more comfortable, and our click-through rates have shown that when the reward comes from the game or the app, it tends to do significantly better. The click-through rates are higher. People feel more trust in that. It also allows us to work with a much more varied set of developers. Most developers are very conscious of their brand, and they're very careful with what they expose their users to. And so when you bring in a third party, it really needs to be, there needs to be a lot of trust, and you need to have a relationship with that third party based on trust. So in our case, we've chosen to go white label, and we see that it works better, and we work with we have a significantly larger developer base than if we were branded.
So what would, not that we want to give away all the games that you're on since you're white label, but what game or app would I be on where I receive a reward and it's because of you guys?
Sure. So we power thousands of games and apps. A great example is a game called You Don't Know Jack, which was previously a board game and was created, or was brought into social games and also mobile games. They won Video Game of the Year last year, or this year, at the Spike TV Awards. So that's a really common game that we're in that people might know. We power rewards for an app called MileWise, which is an app where you can share miles and keep track of your miles, airline miles, travel miles. So, really, we're agnostic when it comes to the type of game or app, as long as it's appropriate. There's nothing objectionable about the game or the app, because we're looking at the user level, not at the app level. So those are a few that you might have heard.
Gotcha. It seems to me that you guys are in a special phase of startup mode. I noticed you tweeted the other day that you're hiring a VP of sales. I know that you're hiring engineers right now. It seems like there's a bit of a growth phase going on. So let us know, how far along are you in the process in terms of funding, and now
Sure.
that you're hiring for these key positions, I would assume that you're hitting a sweet spot.
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, this is the sixth startup that I've done, and I think that there's as you said, there's like a pattern to them, and we've hit that point where it's we found product market fit. We have a significant amount of funding. We've been quiet about where our funding has come from and how much we have, but we have a significant amount of funding. We have a significant amount of revenue, and things are going well. I don't know what to say. We're in that part of the startup experience where every day you wake up and you're smiling rather than pulling your hair out.
Really?
Yeah.
So you are hiring a VP of sales, and you're hiring engineers, and you have an idea that you wanted to break right here on the beach, a story you want to break of how you're going about hiring your engineers. It's not
Sure.
just going to be the typical, bring in the geek who used to work at Google process,
Right.
and pepper them with hard questions.
Right.
There's a little more to it.
Well, sure. I mean, it might be. Yes, there is. So, we're looking for A-player engineers. We're looking for the best engineers that we can possibly find, and obviously the market for engineers is difficult right now. So what we're trying to do is to come up with a reward that's very similar to what we do in our normal games, or the type of rewards that we power. So we work in this sort of action reward system. The user performs an action, they get a reward, and we want there to be a lot of congruence between the two. In our case, I think most of us that are into science and engineering and technology love the idea of space. We'd all like to visit space. So we'd like to send our next engineering hire into space. So we are working on presenting that opportunity to the next hire that we have.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Through Elon Musk's company. I saw his goal in life is to get on Mars.
Right.
Which I've never been much of a space guy, so it doesn't really resonate with me. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I would fear going to Mars, but that's what he wants to do. So is it through SpaceX?
We think we're going to do it through Virgin Galactic.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're going to foot the bill for your next engineer to go to space.
So one of the things that we do is we insure very large prizes. So like if you've ever seen like get a chance to win $10 million with a guaranteed reward of $10,000 or something like that. 10 million guaranteed reward of 10,000. That might have been us behind it. So we insure a lot of these. What we've decided to do is take out to hedge a little bit, to use terms that the people on the street might know, and have taken out a small policy to give our engineer a really good chance of doing it. So right now our plan, and we'll finalize this soon, but our plan is to essentially deal one round of blackjack on the first day that our new engineer comes into the office. And if they hit blackjack, we're sending them to space.
Really?
So we will live stream it with you guys. We will live stream.
Really?
Absolutely,
Okay.
sure.
That's cool. That's cool. So you got a 1 in 26 chance of going to space.
Yes.
And what's it cost to go if indeed this happens? So the insurance company is going to fit the bill for the trip.
Right. So exactly. So they, to send somebody to space through Virgin Galactic right now is around $200,000.
Really?
It is $200,000.
$200,000. So what if they don't get it though? Because that would be disappointing, right? What if they're the greatest candidate? Maybe they've got cash, they don't need the job, but they would like to have the job. It'd be nice to work for a good startup.
Sure.
And they come in, they lose, they quit the next day.
Well, that would suck. They get the chance to work with great people at a happy startup. Obviously, that's part of. I mean, we want people who want the job. Obviously, right? So That's one of the things that they get. We're also offering a few different rewards. Like there's a normal signing bonus if they don't win anything, but the secondary offer to keep things fun and to make it a reward is if they're able to beat the dealer. Let's say they draw an 8, but they beat the dealer. We're going to give a larger prize to them. That's, you know, not $200,000, but a very nice signing bonus.
That's reasonable. So there'll be a live stream of that event right here.
Yes.
You should do it on the beach.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, right? Come to the beach.
Yes.
And there you go. I mean, it's and you know, in all seriousness, I think you will get whether you were doing this or not. And you tell me, with the openings you've had so far, where are the applications coming from other than local? Because one of the reasons why we're doing this is the fact that Silicon Beach is an area with startups that's about to explode. Wall Street doesn't know about it. Not sure if Silicon Valley takes it seriously. But this is a desirable place to live, which is part of the reason why people are congregating down here and opening companies. Do you see a lot of people contacting you from far-flung places? Or most of the people local?
No, I mean, most of our applicants, especially for engineering, are from all over the country, all over the world. People do want to be here. I mean, the quality of life is incredible down here. And, you know, the community that you live in matters a lot. And I think that having the mentors and having the capital and having all the things that make a startup ecosystem great matters an incredible amount. But quality of life also matters a lot. And I think in this part of Southern California, it doesn't get any better.
Do you share my sense that Wall Street doesn't know about Silicon Beach and Silicon Valley doesn't care? Maybe doesn't care isn't the right word, but there is some sort of superiority complex, I think, between those two places, and Wall Street just kind of like, you know, talk to us when you go public.
Right. You know, I mean, Wall Street's its own animal, and I don't know that much about it. I haven't lived in New York. I have spent a significant amount of time in San Francisco. I love it up there, and the ecosystem is incredible there, too. But, you know, I think that we have something different going on here, and it's a smaller community. There's also a lot of companies that are here that just haven't had a focal point to gather around. And now that there's a name and now that there's a place, that's changing. I mean, just the other day, I advising a company that I invested in, and they got an email from a potential investor. Their address is in Century City, and the investor said, "You're never going to get any money unless you're in Santa Monica." So that's already transferred down here, which I think is funny. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great startup scene. You know, I think for the reasons that Hollywood works, the startup scene here works as well. You know, people are used to deploying risk capital in this type of a way where there is a high risk, high return potential. And so it's not a very big deal. In the Midwest, you know, I lived in Columbus, Ohio for the 12 years before I moved out here a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and it was not like that. You know, most of the investments were in real estate or were in very, very, very well-known industries, very low risk, and people were by and large afraid to deploy capital in that way. But you know, in this environment, there's a lot of people who understand that risk-reward balance, and they make the investments here. And I think that's one of the things that makes this a really interesting startup environment where it has an advantage over other places in the country potentially.
One of the personalities on the street, Greg Greenberg, did an interview with the Ferrari North American CEO last week, and he said, you know, we sold 2,000 Ferraris in the U.S. last year. And they go, 2,000, that's not much, but for Ferrari, that's a pretty good number of units. I would guess half of them were sold down here. I mean, I don't know. I see one, you know, once a week in Santa Monica, and then of course there's Beverly Hills, and
Sure.
You know, there's lots of money down here.
Absolutely.
Which you know is probably another reason. Maybe it's the Hollywood impact, whatever. I think when people make money and then they decide where am I going to go live, this is one of the places that tops the list.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, when I moved out here last year, 2 years ago, I moved out here with my fiance at the time. She's now my wife, but we came here because the weather is nice. She's a wardrobe stylist, so the entertainment industry is here. This was a no-brainer for us. But I mean, we lived in Santa Monica at the time, and I think that's probably the only place I've lived where there are Maseratis parked on the street.
Yeah, it's funny. We always joke. There's either Priuses, punch buggies. So they need to make a punch buggy hybrid. I mean, that is like, there you go. That's the idea. It's got to be in the works.
Right.
And then there are Mercedes, Audis, BMWs, Ferraris, and Maseratis.
Yep, there's everything.
Pretty much. I always see a Rolls Royce every once in a while.
Yeah.
So that's the landscape down here.
Absolutely.
One of the things you brought up about wanting to be happy where you're living. And
Sure.
what I like about you is not just the fact that you're young and this is your 6th startup.
Right.
It's incredible. What just brief scope on the other 5? I mean, how many failures, how many successes?
I think four wins and 1 loss is my record so far.
That's not bad.
No, not so bad. The first one was a nonprofit organization. I had a sister who passed away from cancer when I was much younger. The first 6 years of my career were spent building a nonprofit organization called Road of Life that helps teach children life skills so that they're less likely to get cancer. And then the other ones were really spin-offs of a consulting business that I had in Columbus that helped for-profit businesses move their business online. And so took a lot of the proceeds from the consulting company and invested them into my own bootstrap companies when I had an idea that I thought was promising.
Gotcha. We don't talk much before we do these. I like to just kind of just have a real conversation. But one thing I know, and one thing I liked about you when we first started talking, was that you go beyond just being an entrepreneur and being a business person. You really think about the concept of being an entrepreneur. You have
Right.
a philosophy behind it, and part of that deals with happiness.
Right.
I know you're actually working on a book, and I was able to look at a little bit of it.
What do you think?
I think it's great. I mean, I love people who are thoughtful.
Okay.
You know, I'm not just kissing your ass. I mean, I think thoughtful people are fantastic, and I love having thoughtful people on the show because more now than ever, we're talking about things like work-life balance, and we're getting into these debates about, you know, Marissa Mayer and Sheryl Sandberg and the choices they make as women, and you know, I'm working a lot. You know, we all work a lot, but you really believe that I don't know if you believe you can't be successful if you're not happy, but it's going to be a heck of a lot easier and more fun to be successful if you're happy at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way that I've had some pretty miserable startup experiences as well as some pretty wonderful ones, and I mean, it's a roller coaster ride, and I think that, you know, in a lot of ways, this experience is like normal life amplified. I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs, and you really need to learn how to deal with those ups and downs in a way that is sustainable for your own life. And I think I've learned a lot of those lessons the hard way, and I've sort of come around to the idea that, you know, if you first focus on making sure that you're happy, the outcomes for your business will be significantly better. And for me, I'm not naturally a happy person. I mean, I have to try, and there's a lot of things that I work on a day-to-day basis to make that a reality, and I'm not perfect, and I can ask anybody that I work with. I mean, it can be tough sometimes, especially some of the people that are former employees at some of my early companies. I apologize. Yeah, I mean, I've really focused on that now, and I believe that if you get that part right first, everything else falls into place. And so that's been a big focus of building this company out. I mean, I think one of the ideas here too is it's not just like an entrepreneur is not just somebody who's starting a tech company. In my mind, it's somebody who's putting something at risk in order for you know, a larger gain, whether that's their own personal gain or social gain, like in the context of a nonprofit organization, or an artistic gain, like in the context of an artist or a musician. And so it's really when you decide to take that step and to do something that represents yourself, where you're finally making decisions that reflect you. And so it doesn't have to be every minute of your life. It can be a side project that you have, but I think that when it's a mindset, basically, that when you take that mindset and you decide to try to create value rather than to conserve it, you become an entrepreneur.
Gotcha. I'll probably get ripped for saying this, but something that bothers me, have you seen Gretchen Rubin's Happiness Project?
I haven't read the book.
As somebody who, you know, I'm by nature, I'm not the happiest guy in the world, and it's something I've had to work on too over the years, and you still work on it every day. That always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it just seemed like a gimmick to me. Like, what is this Happiness Project? Just because you're bubbly all the time doesn't mean you can just, you know, impart that to everybody else.
Right.
So I ask you, and I dig you on the more philosophical stuff, but practically what does this mean?
Sure.
Does this mean not working 18 hours a day? Does this mean coming to the beach to do something other than an interview? Does this mean going away for a 3-day weekend with your wife? Like, practically, how do you make it happen? Because you can talk the game,
sure,
but how do you actually implement it in your life when you realize, okay, my calendar's stacked, I need to raise money, we got to get this company off the ground, I'm too busy to take a break?
Right. So I mean, when I think about happiness, I'm also not thinking of, you know, the mood happiness, like I'm bubbly all the time, right? I think that's a lot of, when that word comes out, That's what people think of. I'm thinking more of the idea of like eudaimonia, like fulfillment, right? So we're talking about two different things, I think, to a certain extent, but and that's something that we talk about a lot at our company, is that what we're talking about has a lot to do with not just the mood happiness, but also with creating meaning in our life by doing something that's bigger than us. And I think that the startup environment allows us to do that. So practically speaking, we do a few things at PaeDae that might be different from other startups. One, I mean, we abide by the Hippocratic Oath, as an example. First, do no harm. We try to make sure that we're not screwing over any of our partners or anybody else that we're working with, just because it makes it very difficult to show up to work every day when you feel hollow inside, that you're earning something at someone else's expense. So the way that our business model works is that we really create value on all sides of our equation, of the equation. I mean, we create value for our game developers, for our advertisers, for ourselves, for our investors. So that's one of our goals. I mean, that's a business model choice that we've made that's important. I mean, another example, I think, is a practice that we have every day that I'm missing right now, unfortunately, that we call 3 Good Things. It came from the psychologist Martin Seligman, I think. At least I think I first read about it in one of his books, where we pause for a moment at the end of our daily stand-up, and everybody goes over 3 good things since the last time that we've talked, 2 professional and 1 personal. So sometimes they're really little things, like I finished a project I've been working on, to we just completed a large round of funding. One of our employees was just on paternity leave and had a baby, so that was like his personal good thing for, I don't know, probably every day for the next year.
The Leafs won last night.
Exactly.
Kessel scored 2 goals.
Whatever it is, everybody has things that make them happy, and I think that, or that it's a moment of gratitude, basically. And I think that by taking a few minutes every day and letting everybody remember that, it makes this experience a little bit more evened out and positive for everybody.
Cheesy interview question that I hate to ask, but I can't think of another way to ask it, and I want to know, who do you look up to? We had Tim Westergren and Richard Rosenblatt on recently, 2 of the bigger names people know if you're into startups at all. I admire both of those guys. Who's the one that you sort of put on a pedestal, so to speak? Right.
I think, well, I mean, there's some entrepreneurs that I really admire. Elon Musk is one that I admire, but I also think that people can almost worship entrepreneurs like gods now. It's crazy.
They're rock stars, man.
Right.
You should have seen the buzz around Elon. You were at South by Southwest.
Yeah.
Did you see the buzz around Elon Musk? I mean, it was just, it got to a point where it was almost kind of sickening. I don't think Springsteen got that much buzz when he did the keynote last year. I mean, the place, there was it was clamoring, waiting for him to come to the room.
I mean, there's a saying, no man is a hero to his valet. When you get really up close to these people, they're just, I mean, it's like everybody else. It's like the Pictures in Us magazine of celebrities. They're just like us. They are just, everybody can be an entrepreneur. They're not doing anything that's that crazy. There's some people, I mean, the people I admire the most are the people who have the biggest nuts. I mean, Elon Musk has big nuts.
Yeah, exactly. There's no Bezos? Bezos?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know a lot about these people's lives, and I think to me a lot of that matters, like the way people act on a personal level matters, but in terms of business accomplishments, I mean, Amazon is incredible. There's nothing that you can argue with there.
All right, so PaeDae is hiring engineers. If you want to apply, what do you have to do?
Go to our website. There's a careers page, and I don't know, at this point we'll probably have to put some legalese at the bottom of the page, but apply under our engineering positions, and the winner, we are going to do everything we can to try to send you into space.
There you go. You get a 1 in 26 chance of going to space if you get hired as the next engineer at PaeDae. They want A players. They don't want yahoos, although you could have possibly worked at Yahoo in the past. And that's novel, man. I've never heard of that before.
Well, we're trying to think outside the box, and we're also trying to, this is another way for us to show the way that our minds work and the way that we put something that's fun and exciting into games and into apps and keep people engaged. I mean, hopefully this gets some press and that idea gets out there.
Real quick, how many, in a typical engineer opening, how many applications do you get?
Maybe 30 or 40.
And how many are actual legit, like you're going to talk to them?
Probably like 3 or 4. Okay.
So then it comes down to maybe 1 or 2 people.
Right, generally.
For this one, you're going to get a lot more.
I think so. We'll have to make sure that we bump up our server capacity.
All right, I want to call him Rob Emmerich because of Mike Emmerich, the great hockey announcer, but it's Rob Emmerich, and he's the co-founder of PaeDae. Sam Goldberg, I also met at South by Southwest last week, another guy involved with the company. It's the one thing about Silicon Beach, and I'm not saying people aren't nice elsewhere, because people on Wall Street have been great to me, but people on Silicon Beach in this area that are in the startup culture, they're just nice people. They're good people to be around, not a whole lot of pretension, no matter how successful or unsuccessful they are. So it's really been a great experience talking to you.
Sure. Goldberg is great as long as you're on his good side.
Exactly. You got to be on everybody's good side. All right, so PaeDae, check them out. And if you have the skills to be the next great startup engineer, you might want to apply for that gig. And who knows, you may going off to space in the process.
Cool. Thanks.